What's going on, everyone? Finally, I nailed the intro, I hope. Took me a lot of tries to get that music to play like at the right moment for the video starting. This is a special day today, and it's really quite strange. I'm a little bit freaked out that I've actually made 100 videos for Grinderschool. But I thought that given it's my 100th video, I didn't just want to jump in and do like, hey guys, another live play, me playing 100 NL, here's me with a student. You know, I do that kind of stuff all the time, so 100 is quite a monumentous amount of videos to make, so I thought we'd mark the occasion with something a little bit more special than that. So today what we're going to do is go through the 10 most important things I've learned in poker. Just to give you a brief recap, I've been playing poker online seriously since like 2009 or so, when I worked my way through the stakes for the first time. And you know, since then I've undergone like quite a lot of transitions. I started off as like an arrogant fish who thought he knew everything, as a lot of us do. And especially back then when there weren't so many good resources or advice, there were a lot of arrogant fish going about and no one really knew how to play well. And I was definitely one of those, but since then I've come a long way in my poker journey and obviously moved up stakes and had some success, and now I'm pretty much playing poker professionally these days, since I've just graduated and have no ambition whatsoever to find a real job and have to work someone else's hours and do what someone else wants when I could just play poker. So I've got poker to thank for that being the place I'm in right now and for coming this far. And I want to tell you guys about the 10 most important things that I've learned along the way that have helped me sort of get to where I am and be like a winning player at the likes of 100 NL and hopefully 200 NL soon, as I'm about to move up since I've had a bit of success this month. But yeah, enough semi-bragging talking about where I am now and more about how I got to where I am and what I've done to beat the games that a lot of you guys are trying to move up through, because these days it's really tough and there's just so many people that start off playing poker and they just hit the ceiling at like 25 NL and just can't get past it, and that's a bit of a shame, and it's a reflection on how tough the games are today, and it's also a reflection on people not having the right approach. And a lot of these things that I'm going to be talking about today are not by any means strategic things about how to play a hand in certain spots. They're more about how you approach the game as a serious hobby / profession / long-term project. How you approach it as those things, and the way you need to be mentally. And I guess it's a little bit about the sort of ins and outs of the daily poker mindset that you should have. That kind of stuff. So let's get into the 10 most important things I've learned. They're not in any order. There's no like ranking them. I've done it 10 through 1, so it looks like I'm building up to the most important, which is kind of silly. I probably meant to change that, but I haven't now, and I'm not going to change it at this point. But these aren't really in order. They're just 10 things that I've learned, and the 10 most important things that I could think of, basically, to tell you guys today. So the first thing I want to stress is a thing that actually held me back for a very long time, and something that's always been a demon in my quest to become a successful money-making poker player, and that is that volume is important. It's how we beat variance. It's how we know we're actually doing well in the games. It's how we make money, and we cannot afford to be like this big fat white cat and just sit on the sofa with our, is that like a Bud Light or one of those terrible American beers? No offense if you're American, you drink like Bud Light or Coors Light or something, but man, those beers, what the hell. Anyway, back to the point. We can't afford to sit and drink beer all day with the remote, because we're suddenly going to find that the bills are stacking up and we have no way of paying them, and we have to move out of our home or, mortgage our house or something terrible. So even if you're not playing poker professionally and you've got a job and it's just a hobby and you want to build up some side income with it, it's not the kind of hobby that you can just put in like a couple of hours a week and expect to go anywhere. There's a lot of variance in poker. You might have a couple of good days, but if you don't put in a good, sick amount of volume over like a month or 2 months, you're not really going to know how you're doing, and you're not really going to make too much progress, because variance in the short term is a bitch, usually. And you might go on the right side of that and catapult up through a stake or two sometimes, but overall, you're going to need to put in enough hands so that variance leaves you alone and you can actually show your true win rate and survive downswings and all that kind of thing. So putting in volume is really important. We need to play a lot of poker if we are going to be successful at poker, because we need all those hands on our side to help us realize our true edge, basically. So for a long time I sort of was terrible at putting in volume, and I was always kind of bouncing between playing a lot and then going on a downswing and then not playing anymore for like a week, and this is something I've been reading about in The Mental Game of Poker, which is one of my most recent books that I've been working my way through. Very good book, I'd recommend. I think I've recommended it before in a video, but I think you should check it out if you've not. It's by Jared Taylor. You can probably find it somewhere on the interwebs, or you can order it if you want, if you prefer like a paper copy, hardback. So basically what we want to do is make sure that we don't get put off playing just by like running bad or running well. Like either of those things can put us off wanting to put in a lot of volume. Oh, we've made like $1,000 already this month, let's just take the rest of the month off in case something bad happens. Or oh, we're running so bad we just can't handle it and can't bear to show our face at the poker table because we're just tilted from day one. Well, you've got to work on your tilt, your long-term tilt, you've got to work through that, and you've got to, at the end of the day, try and just desensitize yourself to the short-term results and just play loads and loads of hands. And what loads and loads of hands is going to vary for a lot of people. If you have a full-time job and you're only playing poker in the evenings and weekends, then, you know, if you can get in 10,000 hands a week, that's like amazing. Like, that's awesome. If you can get in like 20, 30k a month, that's probably still really good. But if you're like me and you've got more free time, then there's no real excuse for not getting in more hands than that, I suppose. So yeah, volume is important. I don't want to stress this so much so that you guys go out and start mass multi-tabling. I don't want anyone to play more tables than they're used to just for the sake of getting hands in, but you need to put in the time basically with the amount of tables that you're used to playing if you want to move up in stakes, because it could take you a very, very long time if you're only putting in like 5,000 hands a month. In fact, it will take you an enormous amount of time, and life is short, and that's something we'll get onto later. So yeah, you got to put in a lot of hours if you want to get a lot out of this hobby or job or whatever, or career. However, this one is linked. Putting in poker time means more than just putting in volume. So when I say that you need to put in a lot of volume, that's not all you need to do. What I learned is that if I'm just playing 8 tables of 6 max 100 NL and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm going to make Supernova this year, and I'm just really trying to put in loads of hands, working towards some kind of goal that's a lot more significant sort of in your head than actually is in reality, like making the next VPP level on stars. If it costs you like a massive chunk of your win rate, or even makes you like break even or a losing player to try and achieve that because you're playing too many tables and you're not studying enough and you're just playing way too much, then you need to sit down and look at your game and realise that you need to devote a lot of your poker time to study as well. The reason this is so important is that it's very, very easy to fall into habits in poker. And the reason for that is that in poker, a lot of the same situations come up all the time, and we are creatures of habit as human beings. So what we tend to do is sort of adjust what we're doing based on what feels right at the time. For instance, if I've been winning every time I've like slow played aces pre-flop and I'm not that experienced a player, I might just start doing it all the time. And there are bad habits crept into my game. Maybe that stays for like 2 months. I just start slow playing aces way too much and lose a lot of value pre-flop. And there are lots of instances where this happens, but basically by studying, taking some time out, reviewing sessions, watching videos, talking about poker with your peers, it gives you a sort of a new viewpoint to always make sure that you can stand back and be objective about your own game, and make sure that you don't become this mass multi-tabling volume robot with 1,000 billion holes in his game that he doesn't even know about, because all he does is play like a goddamn session every time he sits down to devote any time to poker. Poker is a demanding bitch of a hobby or job or whatever, because it not only requires that you put in volume, but it also requires that you put in time away from the tables, you know, oiling up the engines of your game, making sure that all the gears are in working order, making sure no bad habits have crept in, improving, you know, the worst spots that you have in your game, improving all of those while simultaneously trying to advance by learning new things at the same time, and doing that proportionately so you don't end up with way too much information. All this stuff you need to work on off the tables, working on your tilt, your outlook, you know, making yourself poker diaries, priority lists for what you're going to study next. All of these things you need to do as well. So putting in poker time means more than just putting in volume. As said in point number 10, you need to put in loads of volume. So obviously you need to put in quite a bit of this as well. So overall, I'm enforcing this even more. If you want to dedicate a portion of your sort of goals in life to poker, then make sure you free up enough time for it, because it's a demanding bitch and it needs a lot of time. Otherwise, you know, you're just not, it'll be a waste of time if you can't put in the time in those two respects, like for volume and for working on your game. That's not to say if you've got a full-time job or whatever that you shouldn't be a poker player, not at all, but make sure that a lot of your free time goes towards it, because poker deserves a lot of your time if you want to succeed at it. Okay, point number 8. This is one thing that I had to learn before I started making any progress at all. I'm not very good at poker. I don't know all that much, and some of what I believe is wrong. If you ask me honestly today if I thought I was good at poker, I would say no. Honest hand on heart answer, I don't think I'm good at poker. I think I understand more than I used to, and I understand a lot more than maybe one of you guys does who's playing like 5-10 NL, but that doesn't mean that I understand anywhere near close to the amount that I should in order to be really successful at poker. And that's what you've got to remind yourself of every day. This dude here says, I am stupid, I am happy. And he's happy because he's kind of realised that his stupidity is not like a bad thing. The fact that he's dumb when it comes to poker means that, hey, he can learn a lot. And this isn't the kind of stupidity that's like he's, you know, handicapped in some way and he can never learn. He doesn't have like a learning disorder about poker. He's just right now, he's a bit dumb and he doesn't understand it. You know, just as like a dumb child might not understand like maths or something like that yet. You know, this guy just needs a lot of work. And we're all this guy. We should all be like this guy. Our stupidity should make us happy because we should realise that our stupidity gives us a lot of room to improve, a lot of incentive to get better. And if we had the attitude that we were amazing and we didn't know that we were stupid, that would be so much worse, because then we would never learn. We'd never learn to listen to anyone. We'd never take anyone's advice. We'd never think that we could be wrong in a spot, and so we'd never improve our play. And that's just really, really bad. So I guess one of the most important things to take from this is that as long as you realise you're bad at poker, then it's okay to be bad at poker. It's okay to be stupid, as long as you realise it and you're not sad about that. Use it like this guy. He's inspired. He's like, hey man, I am gonna become real clever because I know I'm dumb, but like at least I know that. Whereas some of the fellow stick men with brown bodies around me think that they're great even though they're really bad. And honestly, if there's one thing that prevents you from making any progress, regardless of how clever you are, how good you are with analytical thought processes and, you know, mathematics and all the things that people say you need to have be good at poker, if you have an ego problem, then it doesn't really matter. You're just never really going to get past the first or second stage of your poker career, because you're going to run into a wall really soon because you just fail to realise that you're bad, and you won't improve in spots because you think you've already got it all solved. And that's the saddest case for me as a player like that. So be like this guy. Don't be like the guy we're going to see in a few slides time, who is kind of what you don't want to be. We'll get on to him. So yeah, the point to take from this is you are bad at poker. If you think you're good at poker and you're watching this video, then you first need to realise you're bad before you can make too much progress. If you're sat there thinking, no, but I'm good at poker, I understand things, I'm only on Grinderschool to make sure and check out some things and get some different opinions, and you're playing like 5NL and you've not had like very much success so far, I'm sorry, but you suck at poker. You suck. If that hurts you and you're getting angry at me right now because I'm saying that, then it means you need to work on this ego problem. You need to become like this guy and be happy that you're stupid and be happy that you're bad at poker. And I hope no one takes that in the wrong way, and if you do take that in the wrong way, then you've probably got some kind of problem with your ego, and you need to work on that. Poker is a harsh world, and what I used to do was go on the forums, post a hand. Like, this makes no sense. This is so illogical. Like, in 2008 or something, I would go on, or maybe even before that, yeah, about 2008, I think, before I started taking online poker really seriously. I already thought I was great, because I'd won like a couple of live 30s, and I'd go on the forums, and I'd say, hey guys, how's my line in this hand? And a few respectable regs in the forum would say, why are you 3-betting that hand? It doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you doing? Move down in stakes, because I was trying to play like 50 NL, even though I had no idea how to play 6 max cash online. And I'd say, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're saying. I'm 3-betting it, obviously, because of this. Then they'd say, well, that doesn't actually make sense because of this. And I'd say, well, fuck you. Excuse the language, but yeah, I would have a terrible ego problem. And then it took me a couple of months of reading advice, and then something just clicked, and I just started to think, actually, he's got a good point. Like, and I had this epiphany where I was then subjected to this whole world of good advice that I never knew it existed before. Not because it didn't exist, but because I was too blind and I was too overconfident and I had too big an ego, and I thought I was already good at poker when I was far from it. I would say today I'm less good at poker than I thought I was back then. Easily. Not even any, it's not close at all, basically. So yeah, anyone that's stuck in that initial hurdle, just get out of it right away. And just take a step back and just realise you're just another micro-stakes grinder who's trying to make it, and you might be good at poker one day, like as good as you think you are now, but in order to do that, you're going to need to be a bit humble and take advice and realise that you're wrong about a lot of stuff. A lot of what you believe is wrong. Okay, this is the guy who you don't want to be. You want to be like that last guy. If you're this guy, then you have a bit of a problem. No, you're wrong, bro, he says, because he's always right. He doesn't care, and he's also mad. Like, this is the thing. If you were always right, would you be mad about it if you just knew you were always right and you were always right? Probably not. You'd probably just be like, hey, I'm right again. You know, this guy doesn't always talk about, you know, shame. Maybe I'll try and help him. You know, you'd be reasonable about it. But if you're always mad because you think you're always right, then probably deep down in some layer of your brain, like this man here, you know that you're not right. And that hurts. That's really difficult for you to take. And you don't want to be wrong. Because being wrong is like weakness, and that's bad. And you're biologically programmed to survive and to think that you're strong and project a strong image of yourself. And that's what ego is. But if you get mad about being right, or thinking that you're right, then you're probably wrong like this guy. So if someone criticizes my play, this is a great thing. Here's what I've learned. I have a chance to improve or at least defend my play in a logical manner. Enforcing it is good. So that's not just defending my play because I want to, because it makes me feel better about myself to be right and I can't handle being wrong. That's actually improving your play logically based on objective factors that exist in reality that you interpret and make sense of in a calm, non-ego-filled brain. So if someone criticizes you, this is kind of linked to the previous point. A lot of these are closely linked. If someone criticized the way I played a hand before, I would get really defensive about it. But now if someone who I respect, and sometimes even someone who I don't respect, criticizes me, I'm happy about it, because in the latter case, usually it gives me a chance to get my thoughts out on paper and explain why I don't agree with them and why I think I'm right. And these days I think I'm right a lot. Actually genuinely thinking I'm right because of the objective facts and not because I want to be right. And then if someone posts something that makes sense, let's say, that actually makes a very good point, then I can say, amazing, right? He's just corrected a flaw in my game. He's done me a massive favour. That guy who says to you, he might not have the best attitude. He might say, I have no idea why you check raise a flop because of this. And your initial, no, you wrong, bro, reaction is to get mad and to put up your defences and tell him why he's wrong. But first of all, maybe you should entertain the fact that he might be right. And if you find out that you do that objectively and he is actually right, but you think he might be making a good point that at least you haven't considered before and you're now going to, hey, you've just learned something. That guy, even if he's been mildly abusive or nasty or impatient or short with you, has helped you. So it doesn't actually matter. Obviously, on the internet, there's no reason we shouldn't be courteous to each other. We should be nice to each other all the time. And I don't, for a second, agree with people who say, poker's a tough world. These people might call you an asshole, but really, they're trying to help you and you should listen. Well, I agree with that to an extent. Like, if someone's being an asshole to you, but they're helping you, don't let it faze you. Just use the help because they are helping you at the end of the day. That said, there's no reason for anyone to be an asshole to someone just because it's the internet, I don't understand that. But, it does happen, unfortunately. And sometimes some of the people who can help you the most have not the best attitude. And that's something to get used to. And you have a chance to improve when they tell you that you're bad or you're playing horribly in a spot. And you should just look at that objectively and say, okay, great. This guy who's a better player than me has said this. Why does he say this? And can I get behind it? And can I improve from looking at that? Okay, this is a massive, massive one for me. Bouncing away from the whole ego pride thing for now. I think I've drilled that in enough. It's very important. But this is something that leads to tilt in almost every one of my students I've ever coached. Checking my results leads to caring about the short term. Okay, why is that bad? Because caring about the short term leads to irrationality and tilt. It really, really does. If I sit down and I play a session and do you know what I used to do actually? Let's go way back to like square one, since this is kind of like a biography of my poker time, this video, in a way. Let me tell you about when I used to check my balance during a session. Now that is the most absurd thing I think about that today and I just laugh. Like, it makes me actually crack up because it's so absurdly bad. It's like being a whale of the mental game. Like, Jared Taylor, this guy I'm telling you about who writes this book, he has this term called mental game fish. He says we're all mental game fish because we put way more work into our technical game than our mental game. So there could be a guy playing 600 NL, making a good living from poker, who is a mental game fish. But me, when I checked my bankroll during sessions, every time I lost a sizable pot or won a sizable pot, I looked at my graph to see what it was doing to my graph. Like, that is unbelievable. Poker's all about the long term, and I shouldn't need to drill this in because I do this all the time in my videos. But if you care about short-term results, all you're doing is opening yourself up to get tilted, and you're allowing emotions that don't represent reality. These emotions are like innate responses to losing money, which is fine because in life, if you lose money, you're less able to buy food and survive or whatever. And of course, that these emotions are going to exist. They're there for your own good, but they misfire a lot because poker is very, very different to real life. Extremely different. It rewards you for bad things, punishes you for good things. You know, it takes like a month for all your, or 2 or 3, for your efforts to actually translate into positive results. But your emotional brain doesn't know that. And so what you need to do is train your emotional brain to forget that money is at stake in the short term. Once you've done that, all your emotional brain cares about is the long run. And that's what's amazing. That's like the beauty. Like, for instance, September 2013. I have not checked my bankroll since the end of August. I check it monthly. I have no idea what my roll's at. Well, I have some idea. I know I'm having a pretty good month so far. But I have no idea how much I'm up. I have no idea like how much I'm winning. If I knew that, then I would then get attached to that money that I had won. And that's a bad thing, because if I'm like, okay, I'm up, 3K this month, well, hey, then I lose like 10 buy-ins, I've dropped 1,000. And then all of a sudden that's 1,000 of my money gone. Whereas if I don't know I'm up that money, then I lose 1,000. It doesn't matter because there's no bottom line that this is impacting from. I'm exaggerating slightly. Losing 10 buy-ins is always going to hurt, no matter what, to some extent. But by never checking your bankroll, you can definitely minimize the amount it's going to hurt you and just maximize your positive frame of mind and how often that occurs during a session. Checking drafts every day, checking your bankroll every few days is really, really bad. If you're one of these guys who checks it after every session, or even worse during sessions, then you need to prioritize not doing that. Now you might say, I don't care, I just like to see how I'm doing. It doesn't affect me. But it probably does. Honestly, like in my experience, it probably does affect you subconsciously and makes you play worse and makes you tilted. If not, and you're just one of the very, very exceptional lucky ones that can look at their roll all the time, then fine. I still don't see the point in it because that money's not actually real yet. It's only real after a long sample of your win rate taking effect. What you win in a day, if you win 8 buy-ins, that's not actually real money that you've made. All that is a positive fluctuation in your overall swings and swongs of being a poker player. So if you get attached to that 8 buy-ins, more fool you, because you're going to get annoyed when you lose it even though it wasn't actually legitimately yours yet. It's not yours until you've ground it out over a long sample. So I'm kind of sounding like someone reading the mental game of poker right now out loud via dictaphone or whatever, but a lot of the points he makes in it are just so important that I like to stress them. Yeah, so don't check your bankroll. When I stopped checking my bankroll, my tilt reduced probably by 400, 500%, something like that. I just became so much less tilted. It was amazing, and it's such a freedom. Like the freedom of being able to sit and say, I don't know how much I've won or lost this month, and I don't care. All I care about is playing plus EV poker all the time, playing every spot in the moment as well as I can. And that's all you can do, and that's what you should do. And knowing that if you do that, you'll have much better results than if you were checking how you were doing and caring about it and then getting set off your game because of it. So this one is probably like number 1 or 2 for me if I had to rank these in order. It's just that important, and it's something that people don't do yet, and it's something that could make a massive impact to your win rate. By the way, guys, little side point here. We've not had very much discussion in the forums recently. I have no idea what that's all about. I asked JGB what that might be about, and he says he doesn't know either. But it's not good. Neither of us are very happy about it. We want to see people talking more, obviously, and giving feedback. So I want some discussion on this video. Like, come on, guys. Raising a lot of points here. Surely you've all got something you want to say about it, right? Leave some comments. Even if you didn't like the video, tell me that at least. Right, let's move on. I love this guy. If you've never watched the spoof song video that this guy's from, you should watch it. I'm sure you probably have. But just type that caption into YouTube if you haven't. So, number 5, sometimes the regs in my game play well. they're not all necessarily dumb. I can improve by identifying when they play well. This is something I've not done until embarrassingly recently. Even like a year ago, I probably thought I was better than every single reg I ever played against, which is absurd. Like, of course I'm going to be better than most of them because I win the game I play, right? Fair enough. But to be better than every one of them, like, come on. Let's be fair. If I was better than every single reg at my stake, I'd probably be playing like 3 stakes higher. So, you are so dumb for real. That's what people think about every reg in their game. Like, a reg will make a play, and, you know, they'll win the pot through it. But that's never through skill, you know. In our minds, naturally, it's not through skill that guy beat me. It's because he's really lucky and really dumb. Like, maybe he won because he's dumb, which is weird, right? And sometimes that can be true, of course. It's poker, anything can be true. But usually, over the long run, if someone is taking your money, it's because they are a better poker player than you. So what I've done recently is, sometimes when I've lost a pot, I've said, wow, yeah, he played that really well. You know, maybe I shouldn't have called the river, but he played that hand very well. Or, okay, that bluff, even when I win a pot, like, there's a temptation to be like, ha ha ha, you dumb, because I caught you bluffing. Come on, like, you've got a range. You don't just have the one hand that you called with, it's like the top of your range. Sometimes a guy will bluff into me when I have the nuts, like check raise a river all in, I'll snap it off, he'll show a bluff, and the initial instinct there is to go, you are so dumb, so dumb, right, like this guy would say. But in reality, that might have been a good bluff, and a lot of time it is. And a lot of time that regulars, a lot of regs are bad, but a lot of the regs in your game who give you trouble and give you a headache, that's because they're good and they're making good plays and they're difficult to play against. And if you can sort of establish in your head why they're good and why something they've done is good, you can learn from it and do similar things in similar spots. Of course, you should also be able to criticise the regs who are bad and explain why what they've done is bad. But again, just be objective about it and just realise that you're not better than all the regs in your games. You're not. Like, sorry, you're not. I used to think I was, and I was really stupid. And now I realise that some of them are better than me, and that's fine. If they're better than me, or they're good, or I don't have a big edge on them, at least then I'll tag them a certain colour, and then I'll know I can avoid that guy. Or at least I can be aware that he's solid, and won't be making really basic mistakes or anything. Okay, so that's an important one as well, for sure. Give people respect, because often they deserve it. And, you know, imagine in any other sport, like, just before I move on, like, imagine in boxing, like, you're like a top fighter, like, at the top of your game, and you're fighting for, like, the world title in your division against another top fighter, and you decided that he was bad. Like, okay, in boxing it's slightly different. You probably want to believe that you're better because you need that psychological confidence and ego to win a lot of the time. It's more physical, you need adrenaline, you need that confidence. But if you didn't respect his game in any way, and you just dismissed everything he was doing, oh, that's bad, what's he doing throwing a hook at that point in the fight, like, come on, he should just be jabbing there and keeping his distance, that's terrible, I'm just going to walk up and punch this guy, he's so bad, like, you're going to get knocked out, right? Because you're giving the guy absolutely no credit for being able to do anything right, even though he's clearly, like, one of the top boxers in the world. That would be absurd. And at micro stakes, yes, a lot of people are bad that you guys play against, but relative to your skill level, a lot of them are okay, and a lot of them are quite good relative to your skill level. So don't make the mistake of the stupid boxer who gets knocked out. You know, give your opponent respect for what he's doing if he deserves it, and be objective about your opponent's game, and, you know, give him credit where credit's due and learn from that. Number 4. I can't learn poker by memorising what to do or copying better players. I have to be able to get the answer myself through my own reasoning. Do you remember when, like, you were in school and if you didn't understand something in math class, you might copy the person to your right? And that made the teacher think that you knew what you were doing and you survived the pressure of the class. But then you got to the exam and you failed horribly because you didn't actually know how to do it. You were just copying down answers. Don't do this in poker. It's very tempting and very easy to do this in poker because you might be on Grinderschool watching a video of mine or someone else, and the coach might say, yeah, so this is a good spot to check raise. And hopefully if they're a good coach, they'll explain exactly why that's a good thing and exactly why they're doing what they're doing. If they're a bad coach, they might not, in which case you probably shouldn't watch their videos. But they'll give you an explanation. And the important thing is that you actually listen to the explanation and try to understand the thought process so that you can repeat similar thought processes where they're relevant and sort of get a feel for where they're relevant, not just copying, oh, this looks like that spot carried through check raise the flop and I'm going to do it. Oh, this looks like that spot that Colossus folded the nuts on the river because he's Colossus and he plays full ring and he folds, makes loads of awesome folds and stuff. I'm going to do that. Like, you can't just do the things that your instructors do without understanding why they're doing them. You need to understand exactly what is going through your instructor's head or close to it when he makes a play. And similarly, when someone who you think is a better player than you gives you advice on the forum, oh, you should just bet that river. If you don't know why they're saying that, then that can actually hurt you taking that advice on board. Taking any advice on board that's not clear in your head why it's good is going to hurt you. Like, one of the sad realities of poker is that it's a very difficult game to know what is right in a lot of the time. And therefore, if I wanted, I could probably say to my students absurd things and justify them. Like, I could give them absurd ideas about what's right in a spot, and they would probably do it and then lose horribly. But of course I would never do that. But that just demonstrates how difficult it is to actually know objectively what's right in so many situations. And so you need to be able to do the working. You know, they said in school, you know, do the rough working and then you get your answer. And you must show your working to get the points or whatever. And it's the same in poker. You've got to do the thought process and get from A to D via B and C as logical steps in your thought process, and not just jumping because you saw someone do something in a situation that looks similar. So take everything an instructor says as something that you can consider as a potential for being incorporated into your game. Say your instructor leads the turn in a spot that you'd never lead the turn. Don't say, right, okay, I'm going to lead the turn in that spot now. Great, thanks for that. That's just bad. You're probably going to misapply it. You're not going to know exactly why your instructor's doing it. You're not going to understand the factors that go into the decision. Instead, what you want to do is say, right, okay, so character's just led the turn there. That's interesting. That's something I wouldn't normally do because I think that would be bad normally. Now, why does he want to do that? And listen again to the explanation that I hopefully give, and try and understand the actual thoughts behind it. And you might even decide at the end of the day, no, I don't agree with that because of this. At that point, you should post it in the forum. Maybe I'll agree that you're right. Maybe what I'm saying is not right, because it won't always be. It will be more often than what you'd say if you made a video, perhaps based on the stakes that we play. But people are still very fallible all the way up to the highest stakes. So whenever someone tells you something, try and work out if you agree with it based on their reasoning, and try and work out if their reasoning is good and if you want to incorporate it into your game because you also think that it's good, and don't just accept it at face value, because that's a trap that I used to fall into. I used to say, right, well, X or Y player told me that I should never bet the turn in this spot, so I'm going to check. There might be a bit more reasoning to it than that, but it'd be very sort of vague. And, you know, my head's just getting overloaded with too many ideas without understanding them. What you want is like a few ideas you understand really well. You don't want loads and loads of half ideas floating about, echoes and memories of what someone said to you in the past, sort of bombarding you during a session. What you want is to have a clear thought process for yourself. And if you use something that a better player or whatever has told you, it's because you've come to understand it and accept it and incorporate it into your own logical thought process, and you're not just monkey see, monkey do, copying it. Okay, let's move on. This is a good one. This one is about honesty, and it's about being honest with yourself, because that's how you improve as a person and move forward. This isn't me, thankfully. I hope you guys knew that already, but you know, if this was me, then you guys would need to consider like your membership on Grinderschool. Like, you can't really learn poker from a guy that goes about in a nappy that's like really, really fat and looks a bit special. Maybe you can, maybe he's a really good player and I'm being really judgmental. But yeah, anyway. So I had to think, over the last few years, I've had to think about what it is that holds me back from achieving my goals. And basically I'm lazy, naturally. Less so these days because I'm sort of training myself not to be, but I used to be incredibly lazy. Like, I would procrastinate to the point that I would just achieve nothing in a week very easily when I meant to achieve lots and lots of things. That for poker, as the first couple of slides will have shown you, is just really, really detrimental. So we can't be that lazy. I'm also immature. I'm growing up, you know, getting older, but that doesn't mean that I'm mentally maturing at the same rate as my numerical age is going up. And a lot of people, it won't. A lot of people are still hang on to a lot of like instincts from their childhood, and poker can bring out those instincts. For me, when I was a kid, I was really, really, really bad at losing. When I lost, I went crazy. Basically, my dad used to let me win at games like chess and things, probably because he thought I'd go crazy when I lost, but maybe he did it a bit too much, because I was a bit of a brat. And then I thought I was invincible at every game. I thought I could just beat everyone at everything. Like, I was a little kid, and I thought, you know, I did beat many adults at chess, because people who don't know how to play chess, a 3-year-old or 4-year-old can beat them. But I expected to just never lose at most games I played. Computer games, I smashed up like many controllers, joysticks for old computers, punched TVs and monitors, threw things, tantrumed, snapped I had Mortal Kombat on the PlayStation 1, Mortal Kombat trilogy, and I could never beat the final boss, but I expected that I should beat him, you know, because I win at everything right. So I took the game out and smashed it up, you know, snapped it into thousands of pieces. And that cost like £50 back then, like, you know, 1998, man, that's not cheap. That's like a state-of-the-art PlayStation game. But anyway, so I was very immature, and I had to become aware of that before I could become better at losing. I still don't like losing, but it doesn't send me on crazy tilt anymore. And of course, if you have that kind of losing issue, you can never be a poker player. And I had to realise from an early stage in my poker career that this was holding me back massively. The ego is kind of linked as well. I used to have an ego problem as well. I used to think that I was always right and everyone else was always wrong. And, you know, I already knew how to play poker really well because I'm special, right? I'm just destined to be great because, I don't know. I was reading this article about how my generation is sort of plagued with this weird belief that they should be like amazing and much better than everyone else. And I don't want to get into all of that right now, but I definitely had a lot of that and still do to an extent. Have a lot of that sort of delusional attitude that I deserve more than everyone else does. And, you know, like this big baby brat guy here, I was just bad. And that was detrimental with poker. I would procrastinate a lot. I already covered that. You know, if you're constantly procrastinating, you're just not going to get anything done. And I was a dreamer, you know. I used to think that I would just achieve great things without doing anything, which is totally logically incoherent. Like, I used to think, okay, in like 5 years' time, I'm going to be like one of the best poker players in the world. Like, come on, in the whole world, really? Really? But yeah, I used to think that. I used to think I was entitled to be one of the greatest poker players of all time, and just crazy Phil Hellmuth like expectations. Like, not that I want to be Phil Hellmuth, but that lack of realism that Phil Hellmuth has, that was me. You know, if someone beat me, it was because they were bad and they'd got in the way of my destiny to become like the best poker player ever. And today, I don't think I'm going to be the best poker player ever. I'd love to be, and that inspires me, but I'm not, probably. But what I can be is someone who's really good at poker relative to everyone else and can make a lot of money from it, hopefully, eventually. So, you know, there's a difference between dreaming unrealistically and dreaming realistically. Don't ever let go of your dreams, but at least be realistic about how you might achieve them. Don't just expect to soar through the stakes, because this is 2013. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. It might have done in 2005 when no one knew what to do. You might have been able to read a poker book and crush some NLs, but these days, nah. But the thing is that all of these flaws in my character made me really, really unsuitable for being a poker player. And what you need to do as well is look at the flaws in your character, because we all are going to have flaws in our character for sure, and some of them might not affect poker too much to an extent. Like, say you have an issue with, let's say that when you grew up, your brothers and sisters always took your food, and like you've got an issue when you go out to eat and someone has a bigger plate of food than you get annoyed about it. Like, that's probably a flaw in your character, but it's probably not something that's going to affect your poker. But there are a lot of things that may well affect your poker, like if you're really argumentative and ego-driven and you're really sort of defensive all the time and you're insecure. All these things are going to make you a bad poker player, unfortunately. So you've got to kind of... Poker is like a self-improvement path. You need to be... It takes a very special kind of person to succeed in poker. And that means ironing out all the flaws in your character and personality that make you unsuitable for it. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I believe everyone should try to do to become a good poker player. So, number 2. This is like one of my favourite ones. Like, this is a happy one. So life is short. Like, it's crazily short. I've already made 100 videos for Grinderschool. Like, 3 years have gone by of me making videos somehow. I have no idea how. But yeah, life is short, so stay inspired and don't lose sight of your poker goals and ambitions, whatever they may be. So you might want to become Antonio Esfandiari, featured here, with like the 3 cliched hot girls. By the way, like, if I had to pick like girls to be around me when I was like a successful baller, it wouldn't be these 3. These are just like generically kind of boring looking girls. Like, I'm kind of sidetracking again, but basically, I don't understand the whole, oh my god, like blonde and pretty and really thin, like, nah. Like, I want girls that look unique in some way, that are like special and like nice looking in a way that's not just generic, man. Like, Esfandiari probably doesn't give a shit because he's a baller. Anyway, but yeah, okay, back to the point. Whether you want to become Antonio Esfandiari and be surrounded by chicks, flicking cards about like a magician, you know, having just won like a bracelet in the World Series of Poker and like $10 million, or whether you just want to be a guy who can go into work and say, yeah, I'm going on holiday again next month. And your colleagues will be like, why? You'll be like, well, just the extra money I made from my poker, you know. Made £4,000 in the last 6 months, so I'm going to use that for an epic holiday with my wife and the kids, and we're going to go away and just have a great time in Florida or whatever. It could be something as humble as just getting an extra holiday a year. It could be something like just having a hobby that you're successful at. Like, people play chess, people play football, they want to do really well at their hobby, and it gives them a sense of fulfillment. Maybe that's what poker is for you. Whatever it is, don't lose sight of that, and don't downgrade your goals unless they're wildly unrealistic. If you've got realistic goals, like I've got a realistic goal to become really rich from poker. Is this going to happen? It may well not happen. But the point is that it's not unrealistic, because I think that if I did everything right and did everything to my full potential, then I could make it happen. Genuinely. But things might not go that way. I might find that things are tougher than I thought, or I'm just not able to apply myself to the full, unfortunately, or whatever. But the point is, the goal is realistic, so have a goal that's realistic, but is also quite grand, like as grand as you can get away with without being a total, you know, living in dreamland, basically. So it's probably unrealistic for you to want to become Antonio Esfandiari, but it might be realistic for you to want to make $50,000 a year from poker, eventually. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Don't lose sight of your goals, man. It's really, really important to stay inspired. Like, you need to be motivated to do well in this game. Like, for sure. Okay, number 1. This is going back to a sort of a technical aspect again, like leaving the balliness of Vegas and becoming a legend and all of that. Sorry for the background noise, my girlfriend's just came home, so you might hear a little bit of noise in the background. I was going to pause the video, but hey, I'm almost done. Reviewing sessions and posting and discussing hands is key to improvement. This is something that I have always done, but I used to do it in like the really ego-driven, subjective, I must be right way that we talked about before. But doing this objectively, every session, you know, maybe just going over like your 3 or 4 biggest pots, or 4 or 5 spots that you marked that you didn't know how to play. I'm not saying you need to go over every hand in your session, that would just drive you to tears, like that would be madness. But if you do this regularly, it's like that kind of whole like an apple a day keeps the doctor away thing. You're gonna get into a good habit that's just very beneficial for you, and it'll stop you falling into the common pitfalls of poker, of developing loads of bad habits, having a static game that never improves, and being blind to what you're doing wrong. To avoid those 3 things, you need to review regularly, and you might not have any idea. You might do a review and still be clueless as to what the best line is. Like, you might not have learned very much from your own review because your poker abilities are limited, but that's what the community's there for. That's what sites like Grinderschool are here for. Then you can post your thoughts, your confusions, your problems. Like, why are you not getting anywhere when you're reviewing this hand? Why are you running into a brick wall every time you review it? Like, what is it you don't understand specifically? And how can people help you with that on the forums or whatever? So post it in the forums, or ask some of your friends on Skype. It's a good idea for you guys to have like your little communities on Skype. Like, get in touch with each other, you know, and talk about hands regularly, and get little groups going, and do sweats and all of that, because there's a load of people in the same boat as you just trying to improve, and you can do that better if you do it together. So review your sessions. Like, this is the thing that I attribute all of any of the success I've had to so far. Not all of it, but you know, a lot of it comes down to just having this good habit. This is just something I instill in every one of my students as much as I can, and something I think you should all do. Okay guys, that brings me to the end of the 10 most important things I've learned in poker. I hope that was like inspiring, insightful, or whatever. Please let me know what you thought if you've got any questions about any of those. And I hopefully it'll help a lot of you avoid some of the mistakes that I made when I was coming up in the game and stuff, and help you all just stay on the right track, basically. So it'll be back to business as usual pretty soon. I'm going to be making, more coaching videos, be making more sort of live plays, that kind of thing, whatever you guys want really. But I hope you enjoyed that as a sort of one-off celebration that I've made 100 videos for you guys. And yeah, look forward to making some more. I'll see you guys soon. This has been Characters for Grinderschool. Good luck at the tables.